for the glory and honor of the youth of the world. This dedication is shown at the triumphant start of Leni Riefenstahl's Olympia, Part 1, Festival of the Nations. The lettering appears to be carved into marble in a Greek font, which transports the audience to the place of origin of the Olympics. As the music slowly bubbles up, the camera weaves between marble pillars draped in shadow and backlit marble sculptures, showcasing the human form in exquisite condition. One of the statues, a disc thrower, gently comes alive. These sublime athletes from long ago are back. The 1936 Berlin Olympic Games have officially begun. The almost 20-minute introduction to Leni Riefenstahl's two-part documentary about the Berlin Olympics is captivating, to say the least. The rest of the film is equally engaging. Not only is the cinematography groundbreaking on many levels, but the feats of human physicality are even more impressive. To this day, Olympia is celebrated for its cinematic achievements. For example, it's included in 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. It's part of the Criterion Collection, and it was the only film directed by a woman to make it onto Time's all-time 100 movies list. During various sequences in the film, it's easy to forget that this isn't just a sports documentary, nor is it just an advertisement for the Olympics. No, it is only when the camera turns to Hitler, cheering on the athletes, that the audience is reminded that this film has been carefully crafted to show Nazi Germany in a positive light. As propaganda, Olympia attempted to stabilize the Nazi regime within Europe by representing the new Germany as a respected and amicable nation in the global sphere. Did Nazi Germany even need stabilizing by 1936? In many domestic aspects, not really. By this time, Hindenburg, the president of the Weimar Republic, had died. The SA had been taken care of during the Night of Long Knives, and the Third Reich was gearing up for war. The Nazis had eliminated their political opposition. The only domestic so-called enemies they had left were Jewish people and other racial minorities. However, outside of the borders of the regime, Nazi Germany was looked on with suspicion, especially after their remilitarization of the Rhineland in the spring of 1936.
At Versailles it was laid down, and at Locarno it was confirmed that Germany was forbidden to take any armed forces into the Rhineland zone.
In a letter written to his American friend Ken in 1933, Karl Schotte claims that Ken only has negative views towards the Nazis because he has been brainwashed by Jewish media. Since, however, no piece of news published in the American papers is reporting favorably on the American National Socialistic Revolution, your mind is systematically kept from turning pro-German. This is the work of Jewish influence in the American press. Though written a few years before 1936, the Americans' antagonistic sentiments about the Nazi regime ring true to the attitudes of many Western nations toward the Third Reich pre-Olympics. Schotte posits that, as an educated man, his American friend will only accept news about Germany as true as long as it is presented in a way which is free from obvious sensational exaggeration. The type of pro-Nazi news, free from exaggeration, that Schotte wishes his American friend could see is exactly what Leni Riefenstahl sought to create with Olympia. Olympia was as much global propaganda as it was domestic propaganda. It attempted to legitimize the regime internationally, to subtly create a facade of Nazi Germany as a powerful nation respected by other important Western countries. To audiences watching without context, Olympia might just look like a well-made documentary about the Olympic Games. It seems stripped of Nazi ideology when compared to Riefenstahl's most infamous propaganda film, Triumph of the Will. But the artistry of Olympia was propaganda in itself. The mind-blowing close-ups, unbelievable tracking shots, groundbreaking use of underwater cameras, immersive sound mixing, the careful editing, and inspiring soundtrack made audiences disappear into the cinematic world of sports, subtly keeping them from thinking about the Nazis' rampant anti-Semitic policies, like the Nuremberg laws that were passed the year before the Olympics. Riefenstahl's cinematic techniques were lauded throughout Europe after the film was released. Olympia was propaganda, and not just a sports documentary, in that it promoted the image of the Third Reich as an artistically innovative nation through its technical cinematic achievements, distracting from the hateful, anti-Semitic version of Nazi Germany. The opening ceremony of the 1936 Olympics in Olympia Part 1, Festival of Nations, depicts Nazi Germany as a legitimate, established nation respected by other countries. After Olympia's 20-minute prologue that equates the Third Reich's aesthetic tastes with those of classical Greece, the enormous stadium in Berlin is revealed with great fanfare. It then fades into a close-up of Hitler, smiling and saluting the masses. The spectators roar, and thousands of hands perform the Nazi salute in unison. Flags from all across the world are raised, and the opening ceremony begins with the Greek team marching out saluting Hitler, drawing another comparison between Nazi Germany's status and that of ancient Greece. Subsequently, other countries march out, some saluting Hitler. Austria, Italy, France, and Germany all do the Nazi salute, and others just bearing their flag proudly. This parade with cutaways to Hitler shows viewers just how many powerful countries, like the US, respect the regime enough to come to the Olympics in Nazi Berlin. Of course, the countries that are used in the film to legitimize Nazi Germany are all Western, with the exception of Japan. The fact that Nazi Germany is hosting such a revered international event, and that countries like the US and Great Britain brought their best athletes to compete, legitimizes the regime. The countries that salute Hitler further legitimize him as a political leader. The German team's entrance at the end of the opening ceremony sequence, as Hitler proudly looks on, is representative of what Olympia was attempting to achieve as a global piece of propaganda. Normalize Nazi Germany as a respected nation on the level of other great Western countries. Another way that Olympia attempts to frame Nazi Germany as respected and amicable toward the rest of the world is by emphasizing the exemplary physicality of not just German athletes, but also of athletes of other nationalities, and even of other races. The film is particularly engaging because of how close the camera gets to the action. The close-up tracking shots of runners and the slow-motion shots of sports like discus and javelin throwing really draw attention to the athletic ability of the competitors. But what's surprising is that this attention isn't just reserved for German athletes, as would be typical in Nazi body cult propaganda. Black American sprinter Jesse Owens wins 4 gold medals at the Berlin Olympics. Olympia doesn't downplay these achievements at all. The German commentator is giddy when he announces that Jesse Owens has won the 100-meter dash.
Sieger im 100-Meter-Lauf, Jesse Owens. 2 schwarze Läufer gegen die stärksten der weißen Rasse. Innen Edwards, Kanada. Daneben McCabe, England. Der Favorit des Rennens ist der riesengroße schwarze Woodruff.
Despite the questionable language in the comment before the 800-meter event, this racism isn't reflected in the editing of the event. The victory of Woodruff over his white European competitors is celebrated by the spectators and the commentator. Likewise, non-Western countries like Hungary and Japan are shown beating Germany in high jump and triple jump, respectively. Olympia appears to be supportive and fair toward all medalists, no matter their country's relationship to Nazi Germany. This celebration of the athleticism of all countries at the Olympics serves two propagandistic purposes. It gives the impression that Nazi Germany is amicable, while also fetishizing athletic bodies in classic Nazi fashion. Sure, all of these elements could potentially be propaganda. But what if they're not? What if it's just an unbiased, fantastic sports documentary? Well, no. The film was entirely funded by the Nazi regime. Riefenstahl didn't manage to get dozens of close-up camera angles during the competitions through persuasion alone. Joseph Goebbels, the face of Nazi propaganda, knew the power that film as a medium had as a propaganda tool. As Bendersky explains in A Concise History of Nazi Germany, Goebbels used cinema with care so as to make it a more effective political instrument. Bendersky goes on to say that artistry and innovation made the films of artists like Riefenstahl better as propaganda. Their work enhanced the self-image of the Nazis while hiding the true nature of the regime. Wait, what's this? Leni Riefenstahl has something to say.
Die Olympia-Filme sind nie im Auftrage, es war kein Auftrag von Hitler, die habe ich selbst gemacht in meiner Privatfirma. Und zwar habe ich die Genehmigung vom Internationalen Olympischen Komitee bekommen. Die Verleihung der Olympischen Goldmedaille für diese Filme nach dem Kriege bedeutet eindeutig, dass ich da keine Propagandafilme gemacht habe. Dies wäre unmöglich gewesen.
Decades after the release of the film, Riefenstahl tried to clear the film's name from Nazi propaganda affiliation. She did so in the 1964 interview you just saw, as well as in a statement issued in 1958 that claimed that neither the propaganda ministry nor any other party or state authority had any influence on the Olympic Games, or on the production or format of the Olympia film, and that Goebbels boycotted Leni Riefenstahl and the work on the Olympia film with every means at his disposal. Unfortunately for Riefenstahl, there are receipts from the Nazi regime that prove otherwise. Olympia's production company was created and funded by the Nazi government. A 1936 letter from the propaganda minister to a court in Berlin blatantly explains that the company is being created so that the state doesn't publicly appear to be the producer of the film. Furthermore, there are a number of reports detailing the large amounts of Reichsmarks the propaganda ministry funneled into the production company. If you're interested, Erwin Leiser lays out all this contradictory evidence nicely in his book Nazi Cinema. All this is to say, there is no doubt that the propagandistic elements of this film are unintentional, despite what Riefenstahl claimed. In short, Olympia attempted to establish the place of Nazi Germany in the global sphere as a respected and respectful nation by artfully depicting important countries present at the 1936 Olympic opening ceremony and giving equal screen time to athletes from around the world. Like how the Nazis obscured their anti-Semitic campaign from the world during the Olympics, Olympia hid the dirty and malicious side of Nazi Germany by focusing on great athletic achievements through good cinematography. And it somewhat worked, at least for a little bit. Leni Riefenstahl had a good run with Olympia. She even won the Best Film Prize at the Venice Film Festival in 1938. But when the image of a respected Nazi Germany was shattered by the news of Kristallnacht, Riefenstahl was sent home packing from her promotional tour in the US. Olympia is proof that two things can be true at once. An excellently photographed film can also be a Nazi propaganda film. Like the dedication etched into marble at the beginning of the movie, Nazi Germany was indeed etched into history. But unlike the beautiful mirage of a Sparta-like Third Reich that Olympia attempted to portray, the lasting historical mark of Nazi Germany was atrocious, but truthful.